I don't know about you, but my entire life, not my entire life, but a lot of my life revolves. A lot of my life revolves around flesh and blood. And that's why I have a whole YouTube channel on it. And this video, what we're going to talk about is not letting yourself be blinded by your obsessions. So, man, first off, thank you so much for all the subscribers, the people who are joining us on the channel. We have reached a new goal. We have reached the 2,500 mark, and we are going to celebrate that on Sunday. There's a link in the comment section of this video that is an invitation for you to win some free stuff on Sunday night at 8 p.m. We'll be streaming. We'll be talking about all this fun stuff. We'll be streaming, hanging out together, and you can. We'll be giving away like 3 boxes of unlimited product. We'll be opening a box of Arcane Rising First Edition. We'll be giving away 4 of those packs. Thank you so much, Dan, for hooking us up with that. All right, so you may have noticed there's a new camera. We got new stuff, but this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about not being blindsided by your obsession with flesh and blood. Or this really applies to really any collectible. If you're one of those Magic the Gathering people who are here, if you're one of the whatever, this is whatever collectible, whatever thing that is in your life that kind of you lose sight of what's happening outside. And here's what I want to talk about. The market right now is the big buzz kind of conversation. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. That's what we're talking about right now, is what's going on in the market, because things are losing value. And inside, for us, like when you have money that is wrapped up in this whole flesh and blood thing or whatever market you're talking about, you become so obsessed with it. And what I've kind of realized in my own obsession is that I've lost sight of what happens outside of the flesh and blood world too. And maybe it's because I have a YouTube channel. I don't know, maybe you're like, let me know in the comments if you're like this too. But like, I like when I took a step backwards and like removed myself a little bit from the flesh and blood world for a couple hours or a day or whatever, and really looked at what's going on bigger in the wider scope of things. This is not just a flesh and blood thing. And that kind of led me to kind of think maybe I have an isolated view of what's going on, and that's really not a healthy place to be, because that's how you make stupid decisions if you're talking about financial wins or financial gains. And so I started thinking about like, okay, how do I make like a more healthy decision? Like, what are some of the things that I can consider to make a more healthy decision on how to react to this whole market thing? And so that's what I want to talk about right now, because I want to talk about having an isolated view and taking that isolated view and saying, okay, but what's really truth? Because an isolated view does not equal truth. So right now in the collectible world, everything's down. It doesn't matter what it is, everything's down. Some things are down like crazy, some things are down a little bit. And actually, Rudy put out a video yesterday talking about how everything's down. He said something I kind of disagree with. Rudy said that he thought that this is Rudy from Alpha Investments, and I know I'm gonna get 4 comments that, Lou, you're trying to be Rudy. Go watch all my other videos. I do other things other than just talk to a camera like this. Anyway, Rudy said that he thought flesh and blood was going to be the biggest loser. I can't remember exactly his wording, but the biggest loser in the card world. And I disagree with that. And here's why. If you look at already what's happening, it appears that the flesh and blood market is down around 25, maybe 30% on some of the things, but really 20 to 25%, which that sucks. I mean, flesh and blood never goes down, so it's weird like when that happens. But I'm talking like in the last 2 weeks or so, we're down about 20, 25, maybe you could push 30% depending on what cards or what specifics you're looking at. And in a contrast to that, like if you turn around and like look at the other markets, they're down more than that. And I think that's an important thing to understand, an important thing to consider before you start freaking out and selling your cards or making irrational decisions. If you look at like Pokemon, like one of the things that really has surprised me is like the non-high grade Pokemon stuff is really struggling. And if it's not pristine, like the top of the line, it's not moving very well, and it's down, the percentages are kind of all over the place, but much more than like the 20, 25%. Specifically the things that have a higher print run. I'm talking like base set, not first edition, but like base set, old school Pokemon. Sorry, the camera cut out. I'm not used to this new camera. I'll have to work on that. Anyway, but the Pokemon stuff, the stuff that is more kind of like there's a lot more supply is down further than the stuff that's not. And so now I want to contrast, and then, sorry, you have a lot of sports stuff that's down too. And sports world is definitely not my kind of expertise, so I don't want to harp on that too much. The other thing I'm seeing is a lot of Magic the Gathering, like the high end stuff is taking a hit. I mean, I know Black Lotus. I mean, there was a sale of kind of a really high graded Black Lotus that was, a little bit lower than normal. But a lot of the things that are more supply driven, the things that had a bigger supply are taking the biggest hit. And now this is where I want to start talking about Flesh and Blood. Because the supply of Flesh and Blood is so low that it takes a much bigger rock to throw at it to break or shatter a window. And in addition to that, the people who are holding Flesh and Blood cards it's just a different world, because the buy-in 6 months ago was so low that the incentive to sell it's amazingly low. People aren't, there are people who bought in and bought like a $2,000 cold foil legendary, and those people are the ones who are selling. The people who got in a legendary at $50, a cold foil legendary at $50 or $75, they're not worried about selling right now. They don't care. They're not seeing any losses. They just don't care at all. Like even me, like I bought all my Arcane Rising first edition boxes at $130. I don't care at all right now that Arcane Rising is down 30%. It means nothing to me. I have and I feel like I'm this is a common theme. I have no incentive to sell my Arcane Rising box for like the next 10 years. Like, it was never in the plans to sell my Arcane Rising box. So I just feel like the supply adds to this whole mess, where like the supply is so low and the ownership is so different than your normal collectible, that I don't agree that that Flesh and Blood is going to be the biggest asset to kind of lose money. So love Rudy, respect Rudy a ton. I don't agree with that point. The other points, I think he made a good point on. But here's the other and the biggest thing. I think that right now, I'm going to say something profound. You're going to be like, why would Louis say that? I think this is the healthiest, the absolute healthiest that the Flesh and Blood market has ever been. Okay? Let me tell you why. The players are in like crazy. There are more players pouring in to Flesh and Blood in the last 6 weeks, the last month to 6 weeks, than probably at any point in Flesh and Blood's history. Back up again. What? There are more players pouring into our community in the last 6 weeks than probably any other time in Flesh and Blood's history. Monarch was a huge success. People loved it. People loved playing it. People loved telling their friends about it. And the amount of players pouring in is, in my opinion, the rate of player pulling, the game could not be in a more healthy place. And here's the kind of the golden carrot here. I don't know. I just made that up. Is that if the game is healthy, then it doesn't matter what's happening in the market. Because again, the only thing that matters if you're investing in Flesh and Blood cards, the only thing that matters is this thought. What is going on in 5 years? Is Flesh and Blood still being played in 5 years? If you believe the answer to that is yes, I've said this on this channel a million times, I talk to George about it all the time. If you believe the answer to that question is yes, that Flesh and Blood is alive and still growing in 5 years, then it doesn't matter what your cards are selling for today in June of 2021. You're not even going to remember it. It just doesn't matter. So as long as the game is healthy, it just doesn't matter. This is short-term noise. It doesn't matter. And so that's my encouragement to you. Just know that Monarch was a huge success, and that this is going in the right direction, and that the whole market, don't just look at your isolated, that your percentages are down or something stupid like that, but the whole market, the whole collectible market is down, and I don't think Flesh and Blood is at the top of that downspout. I think Flesh and Blood were actually in a pretty healthier spot compared to some of the other assets, but the most healthy thing is that there are more and more players joining the game, which is the best possible scenario for Flesh and Blood. So that's all I got. Make sure that you don't forget to sign up and be kind to the people around you.